Okay, so we are live. We should be at least. I'll wait for a couple people to come in. It's always that beginning part where you're sitting here and it announces that you go live and there's nobody here. So it's not that exciting. It's not that exciting talking to nobody. I can imagine like when a band, would play to an empty audience, it's just, it's not as exciting. So um, if you are joining us here, please, let me know where you're from. Let me adjust this a little bit. And let me know where you're from. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Kind of cool. You'd think after a couple of years, I'd finally get it. I've been using for the lives. Every time I've gone live, I've used my phone, unless I had an assistant here. Instead, I'm using a laptop. So the quality of the video isn't as good, but I will be able to actually see, I hope, what people are typing. So if you have a question, feel free to type it in, and I'm happy to. Leo, what's happening? Glad you're have a chance recently watching the videos. Right on. Good to have you here. If you have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll see if I can get to them. Actually doing an interview later, recording a podcast. I'm a guest on the podcast rather than me recording the podcast, which is nice. There's not as much pressure, because I do a podcast as well. And I don't do a lot of interviews, meaning I don't interview a lot of people. It's not easy to do. I find it easier to just talk and have conversation, which is great. I can do that with people who are guests, but you still have to prepare quite a bit and know what questions to ask and stuff. And it's just a totally different medium. So I don't necessarily have those skills. I haven't practiced very much. So Leo had asked, where am I from? I'm in San Diego, actually North San Diego to be exact. We separate ourselves from South San Diego. But no, I'm in North San Diego. It's nice, nice here right now. I don't know temperature. I haven't been outside in a long time, except for driving from my home to my office. That's about the only time I get outside. But it's nice. It's nice here. So thank you guys for joining us here. If you've got questions, let me know. I've been busy. The reason for there's not a lot of new content. Oh, right on, Leo. Your brother lives here too. That's cool. I haven't made. I was recently on live, but I haven't made new videos for the simple reason that I've been working on my course. If you guys have any interest in going deeper, and really honing in on some things that you want to improve, then the course is it's just awesome. It's going to be transformative for people. If you are having issues with your children, or you want to learn more, or you're just concerned about the future, you want more confidence in your parenting, the course is going to help you tenfold. And if you're interested in that, shoot me an email, info@daduniversity.com, and I'll talk to you. Leo had asked, what advice would you have for girl dads? Well, a lot of the advice, and I have some videos on girl dads, a lot of the advice is similar to what I would give with the boys. And a lot of that is, first thing is just don't treat her differently. That's one of the things I think that we do as fathers, that we think for some reason that we should treat them differently. And the same things, and it's actually scientifically proven that we do treat them differently. And so what happens is dads have a tendency to treat boys a little bit rougher, more physical activity when they're little, whereas with girls, they're more expressive and emotional and talkative. And so that is really, the girls need that physicalness as well, and so not to limit it based on the fact that someone is a boy or a girl. The other parts, though, of specifically to girls comes a little bit when they are older, you know, of dealing with some of the issues that girls might face. One of the things is that the way that a girl often will see the world and see men is she gets that from you. So it is absolutely crucial to be a good role model, and have those expectations. Leo, I'm glad you asked because there's a 5-year-old boy. So yeah. Yeah, it's important to know that, she's going to get her information by watching and by looking and stuff. And so how you treat her mom, whether you're together or not, how you treat other people, the way that you talk about women and the way that you deal with women, she's going to see that and know that. And so, that's an important thing. But then the same things that I talk about with boys, it's resilience and self-esteem and self-acceptance. And, a lot of people will feel like, there's sort of more of a need to do that with your girls. But the truth is with any child that you have, doesn't matter. All of those things are important. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, I have a couple videos on, being a girl dad and what that means. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. So I've been able to see sort of both sides. And, the key for me has tried to be to not treat them differently. My daughter, if anything, I think there's more difference treated with age than there is with gender. As an example, my son, he's 2 years older, and so when we have implemented something, whatever it might be, maybe it's some kind of chores, or maybe it's some sort of rules, or something that my daughter has done it 2 years earlier. When we entered them into martial arts, and my daughter was 2 years younger. And so it wasn't so much about a gender difference, but more of an age difference. And so the younger child essentially was forced, or is exposed, maybe that's a better word, exposed to things at an earlier age. And as a result, was learning things at a different age. She was learning, we introduced like a fork and knife to our son and was like, oh, well, why can't she do it? And she's 2 years younger. And so, yeah, that was, that's always something that I think is a big difference, is the age difference. I can't get the name, I apologize, but Bellatola Captopril, my pronunciation's horrible. Watching from Brazil. Awesome. Good to have you here. Make sure you say hello. Want to know who's here, where you're visiting from. I like doing these lives just because I get a chance to interact. And it's honestly, it's a lot less preparation than William. Good to see you from Ireland. Max from Asia, Singapore. Awesome. Dimitri from Boston. Awesome. Good to have everybody here. Certainly appreciate you guys watching. And if you haven't already, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe so that you get notified when we do these things and when we do that. And then the other thing I mentioned was the course. That's what I've been really busy building and selling and doing that. So that's been something. One of the topics I did a live this morning with a Facebook group. And Leo, if you see, there's a dads and daughters Facebook group. Great group. It's huge. It's got about 125,000 dads in it. I just did a live for them this morning. It's a Facebook. I think it's, Dads with Daughters by Fathering Together is the name. So if you have a daughter, it's a good resource. They have discussions. They provide resources like the live that I did. They have other chats and other things for dads. And so, it's a good group of guys. I know some of the heads of it there, the admins, and they're really good people, and their mission is good. They want to help, foster that communication and such. And so it's good. They also have a group for boys as well. So Dads with Sons. It's a newer group, so it's smaller. The Dads with Daughters goes back quite some time, and so they've built it up. I think it's one of the largest parenting groups on Facebook. So that's a pretty good accomplishment. If you guys have questions, throw them in there. I've got like 20 minutes or so, something like that. I can't see the time. So certainly happy to answer any questions that you guys have, or thoughts or concerns or topics that you want to talk about other than politics. That's the thing that's off limit. Not I'm going to choose not to talk about politics. But I will talk about parenting. And so if you do have questions, what I was going to mention was the topic this morning that I was covering was, oh, okay. Well, questions coming through. Max, how do you manage parenting with regards to social media? Our kids are being exposed to things that we would not be exposed to when we were younger. We might control it at home, but not in school. Max, my suggestion is to keep them off of social media as long as possible. You're right. You can police them at home. You can then, you can't police them at school. I think education is important. There's the new Netflix special, Social Dilemma, which I would have your kids watch it with you. Although kids now are much more comfortable with not having privacy, because they didn't grow up with that privacy. Whereas I'm in the older generation, we were very private, and now we're switching over to this. And so I think one is just the privacy. So I think talking with your kids about social media is really important. And those are rules that you might have, but also, they're going to break some rules. So it's really helping them understand and navigate what is okay in social media. And that can be different for different people. It might be that, hey, never send a picture of yourself, regardless of what that picture is. Don't say something to somebody on a text that you wouldn't want them to hear in person. I mean, there's all kinds of rules, and there are actually specialists around this area, but for our children, and my children are getting towards that age where a device is something that they want and such. I have a son that's 12 and a daughter who's 10. Social media is not something that I find, as I'm on social media for my business, I am not on it for my personal life. So that can give you some idea of where I stand with social media. I don't post, and I have a thing about I forget now the name about not posting on social media, but that's another topic. But I think you have to educate your kids, and you've got to let them know the dangers of it. And hey, when you're going to get a job and somebody's going to look back and try to see all the things that they've done, they want to know that. So hopefully that helps. Sorry, there's a bunch of questions coming in now. Avram, having trouble putting my daughter to sleep by herself. Any tips? If you can let me know what the age of the daughter is, that would make a difference. Kerm, good to see you. What's a good way to help my daughter take her first steps? I don't think you need to force anything. A lot of people will, stand up the child and then, give them some sort of incentive, but I don't think you need to push that. The physicalness of it is just, it's going to come in time. So I wouldn't say to do that. Best tips for first-time father to be, William. Wow. Number one, empathy. Put yourself in the situation of your significant other, the baby's mother. Have empathy, and then for the child, have empathy as well. When a 1-year-old or a 1-month-old is screaming, crying, they're simply crying because that's how they communicate. And so when you can put yourself in the situation of the other person or the child, that's going to help you relate to them much better and deal with it. So that's probably the best tip I can get. But other than that, I've got 10 to 20 videos on first-time dads and some of the tips you might want to, you can check that out. Dimitri, what's the worst advice you have gotten or heard in regards to raising a girl in today's world? Wow. I would say I don't get advice into raising a girl. Here's the thing is that philosophies on parenting, there's definitely different philosophies. I think one of the worst things for me is physical punishment of the child. And this goes, people debate this back and forth. And I mean, I have my own channel, so I can say what I want, but there is never a reason to hit a child. And so I was just doing a live this morning, as I mentioned, and it was about toddler discipline. And of course, somebody throws in there, oh, you just got to swat them on the butt and do that. And I don't think you ever have to do that. I've never hit my children, and I think my children are respectful and communicate well and behave. And there's never a reason to do that. All it is to me is that you don't know how to do other parenting and you don't have any other thing. It's kind of like yelling, and I still have a problem sometimes with yelling. And the reason for it is that we don't have another solution. We have tried some things, they don't work, and we think that that's the only way to solve it. And it's not. So the advice that people have given is like, oh, just give them a swat on the butt and they'll behave. And to me, that's the worst. It's the worst advice anyone can give. Tyler, good to see you here. Oh wow, lots of them coming in now. Just found out we were having a girl. Tyler says, what's the biggest difference between a daughter dad versus a son dad? I have one of each, and there's different relationships with each child. I'd say, this is bad, but how you wipe the child is the biggest difference that, I can see. You never wipe a girl from back to front. Other than that, you treat them the same. You're very physical with them, give them affection, unconditional love, be empathetic, communicate. That's some of the problem, I think, is that we treat girls and boys differently. No, they can't play with that toy, or they shouldn't do this sport, or, that's a girl's thing, or this is a boy's thing. And we've just, of course, as they get older and mature, and there are physical differences with boys and girls. I mean, hormonally and, some other things, and just the pure physicalness of it. But, as far as how you treat them, it hasn't come into play really yet. I treat my kids differently based on their personality and their communication style and their love language more than I can think of, because I have a son and a daughter. I don't say, oh, well, she's, quite not like that, or he's not like that. It's more about their personality. So I don't think there's a big difference, actually. Hello, Rico. Rico, you said, what if your baby's mom is somewhere else and you're bitter? You might have to elaborate on that one. Nick, you're a learning specialist at Tennessee and reference the channel. Awesome. Thank you. Nick had asked, what is your recommendation for teaching empathy to a 4-year-old? That's tough. I think, that comes into play about like sharing. It's hard. I think it's really hard to teach a young child about somebody else's feelings when they don't know their feelings themselves. So I'd probably start first with teaching them about emotion. And I have a video about that, actually, that I've gone into pretty great detail about teaching them what those different emotions are and what they look like, actually using like emojis and knowing that, what a smile and happy is versus sad and what that might feel like inside. And then, part of it then is teaching them, you can teach them from an early age of, hey, you have to look at the situation from somebody else's perspective, and you can try to explain that. But empathy is something that I think most adults don't understand, let alone children. So I would say that empathy might start a little bit more, and 4-year-olds sometimes aren't even at the point where they are sharing. They have independent play. They don't even want to play with other kids. It's kind of in that 4, 5, 6 where they start to do that. So I don't know that empathy is ready that early. I would probably start a little bit later. There's some other things that you can teach them, gratitude and, being thankful, manners, those kinds of things are probably a little bit more priority. Dimitri, this is a great question. How do you deal with input from other family members, specifically your parents, giving advice for your child? So I have a great line for you. You say, when your parents say something, you say, you know what? Thank you. I will take that into consideration. That's it. Now, if you're in a specific situation and they're saying something, you can say, hey, thanks for your input. I appreciate that. I'll take that into consideration. But there comes a point where you have to understand that it is your child and your parents are going to have to understand that. Now, there is a fine line with how much your parents are involved in the upbringing of the child. So as an example, it is hard to police the way and be very hard if you have a parent that is always a grandparent that is always watching the child for you. Let's say you both work and the parent or the grandparent is with the child all the time. You kind of have to have a conversation about that because you want them to take care of your child, but at the same time, you want it done your way. So there's a fine line with that. I did do a video about an overbearing mother-in-law, in case you want to check that one out. But you've got to be mindful of that. Let's say it is just something where, hey, your parents are giving you advice, and they just, because you visit them every once in a while, and they say, hey, you really should do this, this, and this. It depends on what kind of relationship you have with them. With my parents, I was lucky. Like, I wanted my mom's advice. My mom was like the baby whisperer. She knew exactly what to do. So, I didn't have an ego about it. Now, if at the same time, I will say my mom, as much as she was a baby whisperer, was much more open on sugar and unhealthy foods when my kids were at grandma's house. But my mother actually pulled me aside and said, listen, and she was respectful of stuff. And she said, listen, because I had actually approached her about it nicely. And I just said, hey, I really want to reduce the amount of sugar that's at the house. I understand a treat every once in a while, whatever. And she said, listen, and she actually had cancer. So I didn't have, she said, I'm not going to be around very long. And of course she had to throw that card in there. But she said, I want them to remember grandma's house. I want it to be the best time they've ever had. I want them to be playing. I want them to remember candy and fun and all these things. And so she said, hey, if that's the worst, then you know what? That's how I want it to be. And I had to think for a second, less than a second, and said, you know what? When it's at grandma's house, it gets to be at grandma's house. And so my kids knew that too. And my kids would say, hey, listen, and I made it a thing, is like, when you go to grandma's house, it's okay. And my mom was willing to, she said, okay, I'll kind of, and I'll back off a little bit, but she still wanted to give them those desserts and treats. So I think you have to be mindful of that, of, the relationship that you have with the parent. But you can always say, hey, I'll take that into consideration. And sometimes, listen, it depends how you turned out. It depends, what the philosophy is and how different it is. It's like, if she has a certain way of changing the baby, who cares? If she has a way that she really wants to put them to sleep, try it. See what that option is. And here's the thing. There is not one exact way to do everything. I have certain things that I teach and ways that I parent and that worked for me. But not every parent agrees with that. There's certainly ways of doing things that work and that are, but there's multiple ways that can work. And so what you have to do is find what works for you. And, that could be from teaching the child to sleep, how they eat, what they do. Now, I'd have to probably find out more specific with what that input is. Let me see. You guys have got a lot of stuff going here. I appreciate these questions. Let's see. Everyone's congratulating. Awesome. First due. All these babies due on the way. It's a lot of people that have babies on the way. That's awesome. Dimitri, hopefully if you're still there, that helped. So Preston had asked, about to have my first daughter at 17. Any tips? Yeah, I would watch the video about being a teen dad. While I wasn't a teen dad, the way that I approached it was like, if my son came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm 17, I'm about to have a child. What should I do?" We're not talking about, okay, it's already happening, so you can't go back on anything about like what you should have done, could have done, whatever. Forget that. What I would say is that, it's challenging. It's challenging for someone who's 35 and has a stable income and, good support system. So a couple of things I will say as a younger person, I think you really have to have a good support system around you. So if people offer your family members, your parents, your friends, have a good system around you. The other thing, cut out the crap, the partying, the do that. It's going to force you to grow up pretty fast. Now, when you are 17, all you want to do is hang out with your buddies and your friends and enjoy that time. Well, you might not be able to do that right now. I can tell you that you will get that time to go back and party and do whatever when they're older. You're not missing out on much. So you want to get serious. You have a baby on the way. You want to have that support system around you. You're going to want to probably finish your education, if not continue on with your education, just so that you have some, just at a minimum, graduate high school. If you decide that you want to go into further schooling, that's up to you, whatever. And then you're going to obviously have to get a job and support and work and do that. So what I would say too is, you're going to want to find something where you can bring in an income. And, the cool part about now, let's call it the present day, is that you don't have to have a certain education to make a good income to support your family. Back when I was going into high school, and this is, 20 or going into college, 25 years ago, whatever it was, that was the plan. Like, you had to go to school to get a good education, to get a good job, whatever. But I didn't do it for that. I was going to be my own boss. I went to school to learn for myself. It wasn't so that I could get a good job. I ended up going to graduate school and doing that because I wanted to. I knew I was going to run my own business. But if you're looking to, work, what I would say is, get something that you can hustle. A lot of people recommend a trade. If you can get into a trade and, and learn that and be an apprentice, that's probably something. But continually look that you can advance yourself. Put good information into your brain, put positive stuff into your brain. Do not be hanging out with people who are bringing you down. You're now bringing a child into the world, and you have to be present for that child. It's 50% your DNA. You want to make sure that you are present. You want to make sure that you are, supportive. Now, whether you are with the mom or not doesn't matter. That child will benefit from you being in its life and being in its life as much as you can. If it's full time, that is incredible and wonderful. If it's not going to be, it should be 50%. It shouldn't be 5%, 10%, only see them once in a while. You should really have the child 50% of the time if you're not going to be there. These are my own feelings. This is what I would say to my son. This is what I would say to my best friends. Like I said, I've not been in that situation, and I often, I'm hesitant to give advice in those situations. But in this circumstance, that's the approach that I would take. You just have to buckle down. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. But make sure you have that support around you. If you don't have family, then look to local organization, whether it's government, religious organizations, support groups, things like that. That can also help. It's not an easy road ahead. We've got to be honest. It's not, because, like I said, it's not easy for anybody, but you can do it. And if you believe in yourself, you love your child, you consistently are trying to provide, be there and supportive for the mother, you'll be okay. Things will be good. And watch the videos, continue to educate yourself. That's going to be really important. And don't stop educating yourself. Max it said that each child's personality is different. How do we not force them to be what we want? That's a simple answer. You don't. You learn to appreciate the child you have, not the one you want. So, being a child, having a child that's obedient, or following rules is not necessarily a bad thing. I think, I have two very different children, and it's just, you have to make a conscious effort. If each, your child is different from what you might have been. I think already, just based on the question, you have more awareness than most people do. So, most people aren't even aware that they're pushing everything that they want on their child. Being the top in school, being a good athlete, being a good, even if it's a musician, dancer, whatever it is, pushing your child in some direction. It's about supporting them in whatever direction they choose. And sometimes when they're little, you say, hey, let's try this, let's try something. But you're not necessarily, keeping them in there. I say that to my kids often. If they're not wanting to go to their martial arts, or my son now is doing some running, that's up to them. And parents will say, well, you're not going to quit. You promise you're going to. Well, yes. I get it. But at the same time, when they get a little bit older, they start to make the decisions for themselves, and you give them that autonomy in many cases, and you allow them to become themselves. Even what they are dressed, my son wore costumes for 3 years. And when it was first happening, I was like, what the heck? Why is my son wearing a costume to the store? I was embarrassed. I was like, no. And then I just realized it was my wife too. She's like, what does it matter? And I went to parenting classes and learned all the stuff. It's like, just let him be who he is. And the truth is like, he was happy wearing his Buzz Lightyear costume for 3 years. I have some friends that just know him as Buzz Lightyear, and eventually he just was like, okay, I'm not ready. I don't want to wear costumes anymore. Non-matching socks, and things that just don't look like you would be okay with, that they would get dressed. But it's like, that was their options. That was their choice. If you really care, then you give them options and you say, hey, you want to do this or this, or do you want this shirt or this shirt, or do you want to do this sport or this sport, or do you want to do this music thing or this music thing? You can give them some options, and maybe then they get to choose. But yeah, you've kind of answered the question yourself. It's just, you just let them. I don't know that there's a specific way. So Preston, who's the teenager, I've been working 2 jobs for a while now and saving money, but I'm worried I won't have a lot of time with them and make enough money to support them. And that's a valid fear. What I would say is that think about quality time versus the quantity of time. And the time that you do spend, that you do have free, you spend quality time with the child and mom. You might be working, a lot. And as men, we often value our contribution to the family based on our finances. I will say, in the end, as you get older and you realize that that's not actually what matters. Sure, providing is important, but it's like, nobody on their deathbed is going to say, I should have spent more time at the office. It doesn't happen that way. And instead they're going to say, well, I should have spent time with the people I love and enjoyed myself and such. So there's a balance of that, and of course you need to provide. And so when you're some of it is looking for better pay, learning a new skill, educating yourself, and you might have to sacrifice for a while, and that happens. I mean, I know, even when my son was born, although I was older and established, I was running a company. I left my company for some not pleasant reasons, disagreements and things. I left the company that I was running and didn't have a job, and my son was on the way, and it was really scary, but I had to do it for the happiness of my situation. And so, like, there are things now when you become a father, you start to make different decisions. You start to make decisions that are not just about yourself; it's about your family, and so it's about your partner and about your wife or your significant other and your child. And you start to make different decisions. And I knew that I had to do something that I was going to be happy with, that was going to still allow me some time, and that I was going to get paid well. And I had to make that happen. There was nobody I was going to be able to rely on to make that happen. So I had to start my own company. I knew I wasn't going to be able to work for somebody else and have that freedom and flexibility. So I had to do that. Got some great questions here. Sorry, it's Brislin 76. Good to see you. Any tips for first-time toddler parents and teaching them right from wrong? Yeah, I have a lot of toddler things. You have to be empathetic. Toddlers, what I will say is you tell them what to do instead of what not to do. So if they're running and you don't want them to run, don't say don't run. You say walk. If they're hitting or biting, let's say they're hitting, you don't say, you might say no, but you don't have to say don't hit. Instead, you could say soft, or be nice, be nice. You tell them what to do instead of what not to do. That's a really, really important thing with toddlers. And then another thing, teaching them right from wrong is also, it takes time. You're teaching them, their brains don't work as fast as ours. We think because, they're smart and they talk and they have these conversations that they understand everything. And the truth is they don't. I just did a webinar this morning on toddler behavior. And one of those things that I was mentioning was about, they're not out to get you. They're just trying to make sense of the world. They're not out to get you. So I apologize. I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at the words and stuff. It's so funny because I make videos all the time and I look straight at the camera and I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at all the other things going on. So I apologize for that, but the lives are way different than doing a video. So yeah, I think, toddler is something that I have, how to get a toddler to listen. I have toddler, discipline. I've got all these videos that you can go check out that might be better answers. Let's see. So Brislin, he also asked, how should I try to balance work, housework, and family time? Family time is the most important to me, but it's hard for me to ignore the things that get done. So it depends on the age of your children, but I'll reiterate, quality time versus quantity of time. And, you have to schedule those things. Balance balance isn't a good word. Harmony is a better word. How can I allow my work, the things that need to get done, and family, how can those all work together? And what I will say is you try to be present in all three of those. So spending some time with your child, but like being on your phone isn't valuable. It's not valuable to, the work that you might be doing on your phone and the work or the time that you're trying to spend with your children. So being present in whatever that you are doing. If you are working, close the door, shut the, outside distractions. Your kids don't need to bother you, and hammer it out, get that work done. When you're with your kids, spend the time with your kids. Put the phone down. Don't answer your emails and your texts or whatever, and do that. We're all guilty of that. And, I try to work on that too. It's, we have some rules in our house about when we can use phones and not use phones and electronics. And, like at the dinner table, you're not allowed to have electronics. Set aside certain things and make appointments. You put in your work schedule, you probably put in meetings, put in a meeting to play with your child, to say, hey, from 6 to 7 on Wednesday, we're going to play games, and from 2 to 3 on this day, we're going to do this. Or, I'm going to do my responsibilities at this time. Schedule those in and see how it goes. But I would call it work-life harmony. The cool thing about it is that you get to start over every single day. And you can't be amazing at all of these things at once. I can tell you, I'm a husband to my wife. I am a father to my 2 kids. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. I have other family members. I've got my friends. I can't be great at all of them all the time. Like today, it's late at night. I'm recording I'm going to be recording a podcast episode for somebody else, doing an interview. I'm not with my family, so I'm not being a good husband, if you would evaluate it that way, and I'm not being a good father. I'm not spending any time with them. So, but guess what? Tomorrow, I get to start over, and I can maybe do something for my wife in the morning, or I can have lunch because we're at home. I can have lunch with my kid tomorrow, and spend some time talking. So the cool part about it is that if you feel like something is a little bit out of harmony, fix it, and you just have to have that sensory enough to know, like, I'm not getting my stuff done. I'm not spending enough time with my kid, or I'm not, my wife and I need to go on a date, or, we need to spend a little bit of time together. And you have to be able to assess that. And the other thing too is, as your children get older, you talk to them about that, and you also talk to your spouse about that. And we've done some things in our house that have just worked so that we have more time to spend doing other things. If you're financially getting to a place where you can allow other people to do some of the tasks, or, as my children get older, it becomes much easier. They don't require as much time. Prislin, thank you. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. So it's important to just, I think, balance that out with, you'll be able to gauge what's going well and what's not. I wanted to mention too, I mentioned it in the beginning too, if you feel like you want to really take your parenting to the next level, you want some attention in certain areas, I've now started a course. I work directly with people, and I'm enrolling for this course. If you have an interest, email me, info@daduniversity.com. That's what I've been working on for these last month and a half, whatever. That's why I haven't made new videos. If I'm looking for people that want to transform, you want to really understand from discipline to communication. It's a lot of stuff going on with your own mindset, your relationship. If you have an interest in something like this, just email me. We'll set up a phone call. We'll talk about it, see if it's a good fit for you. It's just, I'm so happy about being able to offer this. And so that's just something else. Getting back to the questions. You guys have some great questions. Let's see. So PW, good evening. My wife and I are expecting our first child in 4 months. I'm absolutely thrilled. My question is, what is your best advice for a first-time dad? Another one. I gave the answer before. The first-time dad is, don't expect to be perfect. I used empathy before, but just don't expect to be a perfect parent. Here's what I've learned. I do over time, but I want to keep talking to you guys. You guys have some awesome questions, and I appreciate this. I just won't be as prepared for my interview as I had hoped. I was saying about first-time dad. The first-time dad and perfect parenting is, we're always worried about this, and I can tell you one of the things. I run Dad University. I'm in this stuff all the time. I make mistakes constantly. The difference is now is that I'm okay with making mistakes, and I know that I'm going to make mistakes. I don't have the answers to everything. I don't know how to solve every single situation. I was just dealing with one of my children. I won't say which one, and I didn't have an answer. And so part of that was I just talk with them and I say, "What do you think we should do here? Like, how do we solve this?" And they're old enough, but even when they were really young, we would do that. We came across a situation that instead of me getting angry or upset, and I will tell you that since I've been doing these things, it's like working out and exercising. It's like, you don't go to the gym once and then all of a sudden you are totally ripped and in shape. And it's the same thing with parenting. It takes a while. It takes multiple situations of the same situation for you to figure out, I didn't handle that right. And what happens is there's just a constantly, new things that are happening. My kids that are now 12 and 10 are dealing with different issues than we had when they were 3 and 5. And like I said, it's like the gym, and you have to practice that. And when you're committed to it, just like I'm committed to working out, I wake up every morning really, really early and I exercise because it's important to me. It's the same thing with me improving my parenting. I study it, I learn about it, I try new things. I'm constantly talking to myself and saying, how did I handle that situation? Did I do okay? Maybe I could have done something differently. And I talk about this kind of stuff with my kids. And guess what? It rubs off with them because they are now come to me and they say, you know what, Dad, I probably could have handled that situation a little bit better, or we'll talk about it and they'll say, you know what? Yeah, I really wasn't sure how to handle that. And next time I'll probably do it better. So giving yourself permission to make mistakes is probably the best first-time father advice that I can give. So there you go. Was a long way to a simple one. So Avram says, I have a 5-year-old daughter and a child that's on the way. Is there anything I can do to ensure a healthy relationship between the both of them? Yes. So one of the things you can do is, depends, I don't know how old, with a 5-year-old, if they'll know, but get your 5-year-old a present and tell them that the present is from their baby sibling, whatever it is, that they wanted you to have this, whatever it is. And, let them be happy with the big sister role. My wife did a really, really good job with this with our son and saying, like, you're now the big brother, you guys are going to help each other. You're going to do that. 5 years apart is a little bit, there's going to be a difference. But you just have to foster that growth and not make the younger one the victim, for sure, as they get a little bit older. Like, the little one's going to tease them or the older one's going to tease them and stuff. We've just allowed our children to often solve the problems themselves. And so that's something that's, I think, really important. I've got to jump off here. I'm getting an alarm. But yeah, I think, getting them a present initially and then saying, hey, this is your baby brother or baby sister. That worked really well. And, it's hard to say. I think what you do is you come across with situations, you really have to give that your 5-year-old attention, because the baby is going to get a lot of attention. And that's hard for a young child to understand. And so you're going to want to give them that extra attention and just make sure that you're being, you're dividing that attention and, do something special for your 5-year-old, and maybe, they can start to read to their little sister or brother. They can participate and help out. That's one of the things too, is like when children are 5, 6, 7, they really want to help. And we don't often give them enough opportunity. They want to help, but the way that we typically do things is like it's not very attractive for them. So we have to make it a game. We have to make it fun. And I think you offering that to them would be really beneficial. So with that, if you guys have comments or questions or whatever, just shoot me an email, info@daduniversity.com. I've got to jump off and get this interview, but I appreciate you guys, every single one of you. If you haven't liked this video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff that every YouTuber says. But also too, if you want to do the course, let me know. It's going to be life-changing for people. It's really something that I'm proud of and want to make sure that we get a good turnout for this. So it's starting the enrollments now. So if you're interested, let me know. Other than that, I will see you guys next time, and have a good night. Take care.